Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson, joined this week by Jason Griffin. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Seth. How are you?
Doing great. I got my Big Top Brewery beer right here, and I think we're going to sit down and talk a little Home Tech. This week we got a special guest on the show to talk a little bit about what has happened in the last week of technology, which has pretty much all been Apple. This week we have a special guest, Richard Gunther, on the show. Richard, how's it going, man?
It is going well. I am here to eat some crow tonight, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
That's all right.
Good stuff.
It happens.
Absolutely. Well, I've got some predictions that I made that did not happen at all, and we'll go over those in a second. But first, we got to talk about our over/under bet, Jason.
That's right.
We had a decent bet last week that that the HomeKit is part of the discussion of the WWDC keynote, which we'll put a video if you want to go watch the whole 2.5 hour long thing. Will be over in our show notes at HomeTech.fm/165. We were betting on what the over/under was at 3 minutes, right?
That's right. We set the over/under for the WWDC, which was just this week, and we set that at 3 minutes. So that was the prediction about how much time they would spend talking about HomeKit. And this has been a running game that we've had here on the Home Tech podcast, and I think I have often been wrong on this, and so I was happy to say that I actually got it right, although I would have preferred to see more. We came in about 1 minute and 48 seconds, Seth, so well under the 3 minute over under. Now I will give the little bit of a caveat there. That does not count some odds and ends there towards the end when they talked about HomePod, and HomeKit got a few mentions here and there throughout the rest of the presentation. But the only section that focused exclusively on HomeKit was about 1 minute and 48 seconds. So the unders have it. And if I recall correctly, Seth, I think you and I both pretty definitively picked the under on that one.
We're both winners, and that's the point we're trying to make.
Now, Richard, I know that you have not been on a great run with predictions lately, but going into it, and be honest, what would you have predicted, over or under 3 minutes? I mean, did you expect them to talk about it more, or was this sort of in line with what you were anticipating?
No, I was also on the underside. As I was listening to your episode last week, I was definitely thinking under. We had so much major placement of HomeKit news in the last WWDC that I couldn't imagine it would get anywhere near as much time this year. So I was also expecting under. Worth mentioning, though, there's a lot of really important underpinning stuff that we will talk about later, despite the little bit of time that it got on stage. Yeah,
that's a great point. It didn't get a lot of time during the keynote, but there have been some pretty interesting and I think significant, if underreported, developments out of HomeKit. And I've seen stories popping up here and there, but definitely didn't grab the headlines. And I think for understandable reasons, HomePod, which of course we're going to talk about, was the big headliner. We're not going to jump into that now, but there was a bunch of other things we're going to touch on here. However, Richard, for your benefit, I think we'll stay away from making any more predictions.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, hold on. I had some predictions. I think Richard had some predictions too, like about what we would specifically see at the event. And I'm glad I didn't write up a blog post on this like I was planning on.
You kept them to yourself.
Yeah. Well,
that was smart.
I made a little list and then tweeted out the list right before the show. And I think some of these things could have happened. The first off was a whole house audio device with a strong Apple Music tie-in. I think I got that one.
Got that one.
So I'll check that off.
Well, let's be clear about this too, right? You've been talking about this for 2 years now. This is what you have been calling.
No.
Siri.
You're bound to get it right eventually.
This is what you've been calling Siri in a can, right? And we actually have, we'll talk later, but we actually have Siri in a can. It looks a little bit like a trash can, but nonetheless, Siri in a can.
Okay, so no. I wouldn't put this as that. I mean, this is whole house audio is different, right? Because I don't think Amazon's doing whole house audio. They're not doing like, if you get more than one Siri in a can, you can put them around your house and they'll all play music at the same time, just like Sonos. And that's what I was going for with this little bullet point, which yep. I thought was a stretch. Yep. You know, when I wrote it down, I was like, this is something that Apple could do if they wanted to do, or they could just copy what Google. I think Google actually has multi-room audio with theirs, so I don't want to say they're copying them, but they could copy Amazon and put this extra feature in there and kind of tie it into Apple Music, which they already have. Just kind of makes sense. So that's where I was throwing that out. I thought it'd have a built-in white router with mesh Wi-Fi, which I don't think I got. That Siri would be updated with better integrations with more services, and I don't think I got that one at all. And a companion app for control and setup. And I don't know if I'm going to get that. I don't think I will get that. I think that'll probably be like with the Amazon Echo, you have to have the crummy little app, which I say on purpose, and you have to go through and set up.
That was for you, Richard.
Cancel.
You have to go through and set up the skill sets in this strange menu in the bottom, and whatever. Doesn't matter. Like, I don't think Apple is going to have that particular experience, but I could be wrong. So they may end up with an app later on, or it may be built into, you know, just the general menu on your iOS. But I don't know. I think if it's going to branch out and do more integrations in the future, they may need to have some kind of companion app, and it'll just show up there like the Watch app or whatever. It'll just show up on your phone.
Yeah, or just sort of be embedded into the, I guess, the Home app. But let's save that. Let's come back to that, because we're going to talk about the HomePod, and we're going to get into that. Richard, I know you've listed a number of predictions that you made here on our notes as we got prepared for it. And the big one, actually, we were talking about this before the show, and I had to get some clarification from you, because this one incidentally goes back to our Technology.fm fireside chat, which we had the second annual one this past holiday season. Those are a ton of fun. And I had forgotten, remembered as soon as you reminded me, but I had forgotten that going all the way back to that episode, you were making some predictions related to this broader Siri in a can conversation that we've been having here on the Home Tech podcast. And you were anticipating, I think very, very confidently, some sort of a partnership between Apple and Sonos.
Very confidently. So confidently that I was talking about it on a bunch of other podcasts last week. I was talking about it on the radio. Rounds. I mean, I was really confident about
anyone
this.
Who'd listen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just thought it made a lot of sense. And, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but I don't really know what happens with Sonos now if they don't very quickly come out with their Echo partnership that they discussed many, many months ago back in September. So I hope that we do see that. But without that, Apple's decided to do it on their own. So good for them. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
I just, hi-fi. So I had also predicted that we might see the 4K version of the Apple TV, because good God, it's time. I mean, come on. Every other device manufacturer out there has a 4K product already, and they don't yet. And that's just ridiculous. And, I knew we would get OS revs, obviously. I figured we would get some minor HomeKit improvements. I think we got major HomeKit improvements, actually. And I expected that we would get hardware revs, but I did not expect that we would see new iPad devices. And sadly, that's the one that's going to hit my wallet.
Yeah. Well, I understand that. They look nice. They look very nice. I'm not necessarily in the market myself, but yeah, they looked great. I think the 4K Apple TV, you got to imagine that's coming soon. I think you're right. It's past time, and this probably just wasn't the event for it. I know typically their event in the fall, I believe, is a little bit more focused on hardware. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it at that time, but it is a little bit surprising when you think about the state of the streaming video market, the number of set-top boxes and various devices that do 4K streaming now. The fact that Apple doesn't have it is surprising, and who knows what they're waiting for. I know you guys before the show were talking about potentially a new chip that they could leverage from a hardware standpoint, but gosh, who knows? It's got to be coming soon.
I think it's a fall event product. Okay, so Apple TV is a super easy purchase for the holidays, and I think that's it'll be out for the holidays for sure.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right. Well, listen, we've got a lot of ground to cover here, so let's jump right in and talk a little bit more about what was going on. You know, one of the stories actually, and they came, I think, pretty much right out of the gate with this. Speaking of Apple TV, is Amazon Video finally coming to Apple TV, and I thought that was great news. I know for years and years when I was on the install side of the business, which I was until very, very recently. That was always the number one thing if a client would ask about what's the difference between a Roku and Apple TV. You know, it was really Apple TV does iTunes and Roku does Amazon, and other than that, they're essentially the same thing. And so having Amazon available on an Apple TV, I think is great. I know a lot of people, Seth, I think you and I are both in this boat, are Amazon Prime customers. I don't know about you, Richard, but I
Yep.
often forget
Yep.
that the Amazon Video thing is included with that, because I own an Apple TV right now, and so I don't currently own a device other than, of course, a computer or something that can do it. So this will be a nice feature. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, this is something that a lot of the press had predicted.
Yep.
So it wasn't a big surprise. I'm glad we did see it. And hopefully what this signals is a burying of the ecosystem hatchet between Amazon and Apple, because that's just getting real annoying real fast.
Right. This is the only service that I don't have on my Apple TV, and I'm really excited to see it coming to the Apple TV. So, and it's, another thing that I think Netflix has, not Netflix, I'm sorry, Amazon has, is 4K video, don't they? Or have they announced that?
Yes.
So,
yeah, no, they absolutely do. And in fact, my Xbox and my TV itself have the 4K version of their app built in. And so if they're coming out with the version that is going to be just the regular HD, it could work on the new device, but certainly it might also work on the 4K device, assuming that there will be one coming out soon.
Right. I wonder how many consumers actually care about 4K. I mean, it's one of those marketing things that works well. I think the HDR stuff looks great. Don't get me wrong, but I wonder how many people really care about the difference between 1080p and 4K at the consumer level.
Maybe that's a good point. But I also think that if you're buying a TV today, you're probably buying a 4K TV.
Yeah, that's
true.
exactly.
Unless you're trying to get something for $200.
Yeah.
But
which you probably
again,
could.
the people that are buying TVs for right now. I mean, I bought I have two recently purchased 4K TVs. One of them was like $500. So that's a normal TV these days. Is a $500 4K TV. But I wonder how many people actually hook a device up to it and care what the little number says up in the corner. I think it's more hardware nerds and AV geeks than anybody. And Apple kind of conceals those particular numbers away from people as much as they possibly can. So
yeah,
maybe it'll be like a
primarily
silent thing that they do.
What was that?
I was going to say maybe it was like a silent thing that they do. Like, oh yeah, we have 4K video on there. The videos look great on your new TVs. Blah 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 blah. You know that's It's an easy bullet point on a sales sheet. That's really as far as it goes. I mean, I don't see that much value in having 4K video in my house.
I don't know. I think that when it comes to going out and buying a TV, I think I agree with Richard. 4K really is pretty ubiquitous now, and it's not really fetching a premium anymore. And so in all likelihood, you're buying a 4K TV anyways. And so I think that where it really comes into play is if you're looking at a $150 media streamer versus one that's maybe roughly the same price or a few dollars more or less, and one of them does 4K and one of them doesn't, I think that's compelling. I mean, I think that consumers, even if they're not AV geeks, they might look at that and go, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm hearing a lot about number. 4K. Well, yeah, and I don't say that to be disparaging, but like you think of all the money that's going into marketing 4K right now from the TV makers, and just that message is, I think, resonating with consumers. And so I think at the margin meaning like when you're talking about the accessories and the things that you're attaching to your home entertainment system, 4K, I believe, is an important consideration. And also, I think it's worth noting that we're at the very beginning of 4K. And so I think over time, as more and more content becomes available, it's going to become more and more important.
That's true. That's very true. Well, should we move on to kind of like touch a little bit on the iPad and other hardware?
Let's do it.
Well, the iPad Mini is going away, or is it?
Yeah. So
wait. Go
ahead.
I take offense to the way that.
Go ahead.
I'm right away. I'm taking offense to the way that you're introducing this, because that had the iPad Mini didn't get any mention whatsoever.
Yes, I agree.
On stage.
It was also rumored before that they would be going away.
Yeah, but that's it. That's the only thing. It's that there were rumors, and Boy Genius Report posted that it's going to be going away, but it's still available on their website, and there's no indication as to when it might go away. And by the way, that same report on Boy Genius Report also indicated that they were going to reveal amazing numbers at the WWDC presentation, which they did none of. So I'm not entirely convinced that I'm going to buy that.
Yeah.
But we did get new iPads, and that's awesome.
Yeah. No, we got very nice looking iPads, and this is probably more a function of our notes not being in the best order than anything, because Richard, you're right. This was not like for the benefit of anybody who's listening who didn't watch WWDC, this was not something that like they officially came out and said, hey, we're discontinuing this. However, there were rumors that were going around before this, and we didn't see anything about iPad Mini during the presentation. And, to me, this was an opportunity to talk about it. If that is true, it makes me sad. I think the iPad Mini was a great size, particularly, people in our audience. You think about home control, home automation. I thought the iPad Mini was fantastic. So hopefully those rumors are not true, and hopefully that iPad Mini will stick around. But to your point, Richard, yeah, some really nice developments on the iPad front, and I believe this may hit you in the wallet, is what you were saying.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be getting the 10.5 inch iPad Pro. I think that's a really compelling device. I like the size. I like that it didn't get any bigger, but big enough to have a more reasonably sized keyboard on it. I have the 12-inch iPad Pro for work, and I don't like it. It's just, in my opinion, too big for a tablet.
Right. And it's, I guess, quick question for you guys. Would you care to see the iPad Mini go away? I mean, I'm guessing from what you're saying that you like the size, but I haven't seen very many of them out in the real world. Is it?
I don't currently own one, but I did at one of the companies I previously worked for out in Los Angeles. The last company I worked for out there, that was the sort of standard issue for project managers, and I loved it. Like, I know we're going off down a tangent here, but from a mobile in the field work perspective, it was so much nicer of a size to be able to walk around a job site with and hold in your hand and quickly pull out to reference things. Even the I guess quote unquote regular iPad that I've got after that, I love it, but I'm not as big a fan of it, just in terms of in that particular application. And then when you get into, like I said, home control and just having something sitting on the coffee table, I just always thought the iPad Mini was a great size for that.
I agree. I have one mounted on my kitchen wall. I mean, I really think it is the perfect size for that sort of stuff. And like you said, walking around, for me, I'm always walking around at conferences with an iPad so that I can take notes, and if I need to, take some quick pictures. And the iPad Mini is my preferred format for that.
Yeah. I would. It's still got good specs on it, right? Like the machine that is selling today has a good screen on it. It has good hardware specs. Like they're not like, I have this Samsung tablet that somehow I got. It's like a tab. It's horrible. Like it doesn't
somehow
even.
I got.
But
it just fell in your lap or something.
Yeah, kind of. But an iPad Mini, I've used them in the past, or an iPad in the past, and it's just a much better device all around than this thing. So, I don't really know what to think about the iPad Mini. I haven't seen too many of them, so I was curious what you guys thought about them. And I've seen over in the chat room that Greg is saying that his guys in the field use iPad Minis, and anything bigger would be bad. I know they're a lower cost, which is good too. So it's kind of a pretty good entry level device. I guess we talk about some of the other hardware. A lot of the Macs, there was a iMac Pro that was introduced, which looked pretty cool. There was a bunch of like revs.
we are not abandoning the Pro market. In fact, you can now get our entry-level Pro machine next year for $2,000 more than the entry-level cost last year. Wow. Wow.
It's got a screen.
It is beautiful, but a $5,000 entry point for a Pro workstation. That's beyond my blood.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Well, yeah, I think that computer is designed for, I don't know, people who are doing some really hard crunching. I'm always surprised how little and small of computer you can actually get by with these days. And I think that's why we see the success of devices like iPad and the Surface tablets. Like, you really don't have to have a massive computer to get on the internet and surf around these days, which is 99% of the people out there, other than developers who are making games and that kind of thing, where they're going to need a workstation like this, and it makes sense for them. One of the machines that did not make the cut in this announcement was the Mac Mini, and I guess we'll just kind of have to wait till the inventory levels drop. I don't know. They may continue making them, but
yeah, I mean, this is a device that's been around for nearly 10 years now. This is in fact, I think it's been longer than that. This has been kind of a mainstay computer that everybody thinks they're eventually going to get rid of, but they keep on carrying it on. We haven't had an update to this device since, believe it or not, 2014.
Wow.
But it is still a very good device. It is as powerful as the iMac that I'm using for this right now. So honestly, maybe they'll phase it out, or maybe it's just going to be on a slower refresh cycle while everything else gets the KB Lake updates and all the other goodness.
I hope they don't. I personally am using a Mac Mini right now. I've had a number of them over the few years and recently here, and I think it's a great device. The problem that I have with them getting rid of it is, like, it is the only, and I use this term, this is relative, but it's like almost the only cost-effective computer that you can buy from Apple. I mean, the laptops fetch a major premium. The iMacs fetch a major premium because you're buying the built-in screen with them. And this was just, when I bought this computer, I needed a high-performance computer. I already had a great monitor, so I didn't need to pay the premium for an Apple monitor, and it's a workhorse, right? It's just a great computer. Now, I'm not doing any heavy lifting with it, but still, for the price, I've always been an Apple fan. When it comes to computers, I prefer them strongly, and this is like the only cost-effective option, and so I really hope that they keep it around. But yeah, it's just been a really long time since we've seen any updates on it.
Right. I think the laptops start you off at around $1,000, and with the Mac Mini, I think it starts around $499 for one of their more basic ones.
Exactly.
Yeah. In protest, I've decided to build a similarly spec'd Hackintosh computer
to
the Mac Mini, and hopefully we'll be running that next week or the week after. I don't know. It's going to be a little project. I'll see how it works. If it doesn't work all that well, then I'll move on.
I built a computer once.
Yeah.
Once.
I was talking to somebody.
Oh, come on.
I hadn't done it in like 15 to 20 years, somewhere in there, that I haven't put together parts for a computer, because going and buy them off the shelf is so much of a better experience. And at the end of the day, I absolutely love this little MacBook that I'm using, but the problem I'm having is actually with heat, working out here in the garage. When the computer gets hot, since it doesn't have fans, it slows down, and that's not so good for podcasts. So hopefully in a couple weeks I'll be recording a podcast on a little bit different hardware that can cool down a little bit quicker.
What could possibly go wrong? I will say that for a good 10 to 15 years, I was building all of my own computers, pretty much right up to before the point that I started using Macs.
Yeah. And
once I did that, I had no interest in building and maintaining my own hardware anymore.
Yep. Yeah. It's crazy. I know that I had some crazy issue with, video card incompatibility with the motherboard. But when you looked at the spec sheets, they were all supposed to work together. And God, I don't even know how many hours of my life I lost trying to figure that thing out. And so, ultimately to me, totally not worth it. I'm just not into it. But just come full circle. Yeah, I do hope they keep that device around. I think the Mac Mini is like you said, it's a mainstay for a lot of people, and it would be a shame, in my opinion, to see them get rid of that. But let's shift gears here. We've got one more quick topic we are going to touch on before we get into a couple of the bigger ones, and that is ARKit. Now, this to me is an interesting technology. There's not a lot of direct tie-ins with home technology and the smart home, but I thought some of the demos were pretty cool. And gosh, just with the way that this, Pokemon Go, right? That's the big one that has taken off. I mean, yeah. AR really, I think is it's going to be big, and not going out on a limb by saying that. And so I wasn't surprised to see Apple come out and talk about that a little bit. I was really trying to wrap my brain around where some of the applications might be in the smart home. And I know one thing that I thought of when they were doing that demo of whatever game that was. I can't remember the name of the studio even that was doing it, but I was just imagining like a use case where you could potentially maybe go into somebody's living room, or even a home that was like in construction and in framing or drywall phase, and be able to like show different screens or projectors and do like a home theater demo, maybe theater furniture or something like that. I thought that'd be a really neat use case for home technology. But I just think in general this is a pretty interesting space, and I'll be curious to watch it moving forward.
Absolutely. And, they had a reference. I don't think they actually showed anything, but they had a reference to IKEA using this to help you figure out where to place that table. And it was just an offhanded comment, but wow, what a powerful demonstration to be able to think, oh, I could see how this furniture would fit into the space, and how the things around it will actually work with that. That I think is phenomenal. And my tweet out when I saw this was Microsoft Holo. What?
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. This is Apple kind of putting a stake in the ground finally on AR and VR. Like they did a bunch of demos that looked really cool of these studios putting things together and using Macs in the process. They announced some developer hardware that can go along to help you develop this stuff, since this is a developer conference. But as it stands today, I don't think that there were any, the day before yesterday, there was any way that you could actually do development or run virtual reality stuff on Macintosh. Like their video cards inside the laptops weren't up to snuff, and a lot of people were using Microsoft and Linux or something else to develop their AR and VR. And now what this is signaling is that Apple is getting into this space. And if you noticed during those demos, they did not mention what they were using for hardware at all. They didn't give anybody a shout out, so to speak. So I imagine we may see in the upcoming future some kind of Apple device that they use for VR and AR. AR would be the phones, but VR would be a little headset or something. I imagine that's coming.
Well, and that's the real advantage that they have, right? Is that for AR, everybody's carrying one of these things around in their pockets. And I made the joke about Microsoft, but seriously, are you going to spend $3,000 or whatever it ends up costing for this thing that needs some sort of backpack to actually drive it that you're going to place over your head? Or might you just pull your phone out of your pocket that miraculously seems to have the same ability to position and maintain perspective on objects in your 3D space? I mean, that just blew my mind.
Yeah. Pretty neat technology. But let's jump in here to the meat and potatoes, guys. We've got a number of HomeKit things we want to talk about. Like we alluded to earlier in the show, it was not a banner year or a headline year for HomeKit at WWDC, but some significant news nonetheless. I think that starting with some of the improvements here, these are really things that are that are under the hood. A lot of sort of developer improvements. I know one of the big ones that I saw. I felt like I sort of caught wind of this. It was almost a buried lead in the article that I read, is the fact that they are apparently moving away from this requirement to have a dedicated HomeKit chip inside of the hardware. It looks like they're going to allow manufacturers now apparently to do some sort of software security approach or software authentication. And I know that this was a big deal. I've got to imagine there are companies who spent a lot of money putting that HomeKit chip in now and are sort of smacking their heads. But ultimately for the consumer and for the HomeKit ecosystem at large, this strikes me as potentially very big and very good news.
Absolutely. And the thing that's interesting about this is this was one of the real sticking points for a lot of companies that didn't want to get into the HomeKit space because they didn't want to have dedicated hardware to support it, or they didn't want to have to re-release. And, we know full well that initially we had this confusion where, okay, well, which Lutron hub do you have? And which Ecobee thermostat do you have? The one that works with HomeKit or the one that doesn't work with HomeKit? Now this allows them to handle this potentially just through stuff, as they're saying, software-based authentication instead of hardware-based authentication. The interesting thing here is that there's not a lot of details right now. In fact, very specifically in their HomeKit workshop that they had a day after the keynote, they said there will be more information on this coming.
Well, this isn't really the biggest news, I think. The bigger news is actually that along these lines is the bigger news is the HomeKit accessory protocol specs. They open that up to anybody who's a developer. So you could, as a developer, go and read these documents on Apple's website, go out and create your own little HomeKit accessory that is completely HomeKit compatible, run it on an Arduino or Raspberry Pi, and control it right off your phone. That is something that you can do. And then the next step, that's where the software-based authentication and going through the MFI made for iPhone process comes into play. Like if you want to sell it, if there's commercial aspect to your project, you have to go through the MFI certification process, and you'll get to go through the software. I mean, you may or may you'll need the software-based authentication for that, but this is huge. This is going to, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking I need to break out the old Wipe Warmer 3000 and give it an update, because
make it a little more secure this time, and maybe
it will be
I'll
secure this time. This changes the game, Jason. This thing doesn't need to communicate with a server in China anymore. This can run directly on HomeKit and be secure. So I'm excited about this. This is something that's just really this is going to be great for developing out the hobbyist and the enthusiast ecosystem around using Apple devices and Apple HomeKit devices, accessories. I don't know how that. The thing for manufacturers was the software-based authentication. I can think of a handful of devices, like Jason, for instance, your Ecobee thermostat that you have doesn't have the chip because you bought it a couple months before they came out with a new one with the chip, and it made no sense at the time. Now, potentially, Ecobee could update that thermostat to be HomeKit compatible, and that's huge for you because it's something that doesn't require you to buy new product to be updated.
No, it's great. It's great for me. I would even say though, this HomeKit accessory protocol being opened up, that's great. I think for the DIY and the enthusiast market, but I think you're selling it a little short, because quite honestly, this is great for startups and small hardware companies who have a vision for a product and want to get something to market and need a way to prove the concept and do testing and make sure they've got something that actually adds value or that works. And now they're able to go out, do some of that, testing and prototyping on very inexpensive hardware before they have to go through all of those rigors of the MFI process, and especially of having HomeKit compatible security chips in there. So I think this has big implications, not just for the enthusiast and the DIY market, but also for the manufacturer market, particularly when you think of small startups, of which, of course, there are millions of them.
And for consumers as well. I mean, in the chat, Greg is saying, well, how about Ring? Maybe we'll finally get Ring. Well, I mean, any of these companies that we've seen on these slides for a year, 2 years, 3 years now that have yet to put out product. Chamberlain still hasn't put out a product that is compatible with HomeKit, even though they've been on the slide since day one. And it's due supposedly any day now, if in fact they could really actually just update the one they have with a firmware update to support this. That changes the game for consumers to be able to just get stuff so much more easily.
Yep, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit. One of the big things, now we're talking about stuff that was not necessarily announced in the main keynote, but that is in the session, and that's where we learned this thing about the HAP and some of the new software-based authentication. But they've announced some things that to improve HomeKit, and I didn't think that could get any better. Would be like the install of HomeKit devices is going to get better. They're now letting you use scanning like QR codes to install. So they can be like really tiny QR codes. One of the things that isn't here in our notes, but I know that they did, devices don't have to be powered on anymore in iOS 11 to put them in.
Right. So
go ahead.
That is, you were saying that they couldn't improve the experience. That is my big beef. And that I think is brilliant, is that you can scan the code that's on the device before the installation. So it doesn't actually have to be up in the fixture or, plugged in, and then you have to climb under the desk to be able to scan it. There were devices that you couldn't actually scan when they were plugged in. So you ended up having to find the code that was in the box or write it down. I mean, yeah, this makes life so much easier, but as well as I do, it gets even better than that.
Well, and this is kind of a bigger rollout this year where Apple has opened up the NFC APIs to developers, and they've included tap to pair for HomeKit devices, which is just awesome. So you just walk up to the HomeKit compatible device, tap on it with your phone, and it's paired instant. I mean, I can't tell you how easy the HomeKit install is unless you actually go through it. Go buy a $39 iHome switch like I have, and see how simple it is to set. I mean, it's night and day from what I'm used to in the professional world of going through, and even something as simple as Control-4, where you're just walking around tapping buttons. I mean, it's night and day. Absolutely the easiest install experience on any product I've ever had.
Yep. This does make it easier. Absolutely. I'm very excited to see this. It does mean for NFC that as a manufacturer, you would have to have some sort of radio in there that's going to be able to communicate with NFC on the phone. So that could be some added expense. I don't expect we're going to see that on all devices, but just the fact that they've added that, they've thought about that. And just as a reminder to people, HomeKit pairing, one of the reasons it's also so easy is that they provide the entire framework for doing it and building it into your app. So you don't have to build a mechanism for pairing. They add this. You don't have to change anything in your app. All of this stuff just gets built into the pairing process that you're already leveraging because Apple maintains it for you.
So I'm going to ask a quick question here on behalf of the audience, because Seth, you and Richard are agreeing on everything, and I just wonder if we're going to hear a HomeKit fight tonight.
I don't think so. we talked about this a little bit before we started the show, and I said, I'm using HomeKit now, Richard, and it's great. And he said, well, that's because you waited. And I am going to remind you guys, I am not an early adopter of these technologies. I refuse to buy version 1 boards. I am not a person who sits around and likes to debug other people's equipment in my spare time. I have enough of that during the day on my own code. So
all right,
well,
I'll go back and listen to our last couple of fireside chats, and I'll get my fix there.
Well, let's touch on a couple of these improvements that they also put in for Bluetooth devices. They are actually kind of doing a firmware upgrade on iOS 11, and the device has to have firmware upgraded to be compatible for secure Bluetooth. And they've made the event notifications faster. They were talking about devices that could take like 3 seconds to react after you press the button, and now they're saying they've gotten that time down to around a second. So I think that's a pretty huge improvement.
Yeah, big improvement.
Yeah, that's a big improvement. And the reason for that was that they had to do some sort of a handshake before. And now the Bluetooth devices will just, if you have this firmware update, they'll be able to send an encrypted status update to whatever your hub device is in the house. And so it doesn't have to do this authentication process every time it communicates.
Right. Yeah, and that's huge for devices like locks, door locks, things that were using Bluetooth. I don't know. I guess there's a couple of like light switches out there that are Bluetooth, but I don't know that I've ever really come across anything that I don't know. I avoid the Bluetooth stuff and think the Wi-Fi would be better, but maybe I should start looking at the Bluetooth products at this point.
Well, particularly if you have light bulbs, they're going to be oftentimes using Bluetooth, or if you have like temperature sensors, things that you might have outside where you don't necessarily have power, so they have to rely on battery power.
That makes sense. They announced sprinkler and faucet device types, which is kind of random, I guess. I don't know. The sprinklers make sense. Faucets.
The faucet's totally
well, they
weird.
were talking about telling Siri to warm up your bath. So I think there's going to have to be some plumbing integration, which I know most plumbers aren't going to be very interested in getting into the smart home, but it's there.
Yeah, like the only thing when I saw that, the only thing that I could think of that would be useful, and it would be like it would be a useful case like once every decade for a given person, would be like if it could alert you if there was some sort of like leak or issue with your faucet or something. Like I just cannot imagine a time where I would be like, I want to turn on my faucet from my smartphone.
Yeah, me neither.
Like I can't imagine a single one.
So, I mean, think beyond faucet, right? I think I wouldn't be at all surprised if the first integration that we see for this is from Moen, where Moen already introduced this concept of the connected shower controller. And it's, in my opinion, not fully fleshed out. I gave it kind of a lot of crap at CES. And I think that they really need to think through the use cases a little bit better. But for something like heating up the water for a shower or something along those lines, just a simple notification that, okay, time to get in. Okay, the water's been running, time to get in, that kind of thing.
No, you're right. That actually is a good point. I think, during the winter here in particular at our house, the shower takes not terribly long, but a minute or two to warm up. So that might be kind of useful. The other thing I just thought of when you said that is, having young kids, like you're always trying to get the water temperature just right for their bath or whatever. And you're kind of putting your wrist under the faucet to, make sure that temperature is not too hot or too cold. And I guess to me as a parent of two young children, that could be kind of useful if it was just like, tell me when the temperature's right. Now I say that a little bit in jest, right? Because it's like, well, I've been putting my wrist under the faucet for years and that seems to be working out just fine. But just trying to think of use cases here. It just strikes me a little bit as a solution looking for a problem.
So I think the other interesting use case here we won't get into all the details behind the new events and stuff like that they support. But one of the things that they now support is the ability to kind of have follow-up events, like something happens and then a period of time later do something. And so imagine, if you will, that when the shower goes on, the fan automatically goes on. And then when the shower goes off, then 10 minutes later, the fan automatically goes off.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. Having that logic in there is definitely helpful.
Wait a minute.
Here's something that I want to make sure.
Because I think that if they came out with faucet control, they're going to have some kind of bidet control.
So
we got to think international
flushes,
here.
Then keep the fan on 45 minutes.
Yeah, let's not go down that path.
45. Wow.
Well,
One thing I do want to make sure that we touch on before we move off of HomeKit is the control center. Now, I noticed, and as did a number of people in the in the hub, our Slack channel, when the keynote was going on, is they did this new demo of Control Center, and that's where you swipe up from the bottom of the screen and you get your little quick access to various control icons. And conspicuously missing from that demo was HomeKit control, which is one of the things that I thought was really, really cool when they came out with that, because I use that all the time at my house. We've got a light in the nursery that's connected to one of these iHome smart plugs, and we flip up from the bottom of the phone and we turn the light on without having to unlock the phone. It's brilliant. I love it. And so some of us were speculating that maybe they got rid of HomeKit out of the control center, but I know leading up to the show, Richard, you put a note in here that it's not actually gone. It just wasn't in the demo, if I'm understanding you correctly.
No, that's exactly right. And it's actually good news. Like it may not be a part of the default configuration. And remember, we're seeing beta 1 right now, but the good news is that Control Center finally, what is this, 10 years later, is configurable. So you can decide what things you want to include in the Control Center. And Home is one of them. Home will be just a simple button that on a firm press will then open that panel that you used to see by swiping.
Right. And to add on to that, if you it actually is, if you already have HomeKit devices installed, it will show up as default there for you. So it's not something you have to go back and turn on. It's going to be there, and if you want to turn it off, you can hide that particular button. So now instead of swiping up and then swiping, I guess, all the way to the right, now you can just swipe up, press a button, and then get to whatever you want to do. Yeah,
and Byte here in the chat room is I think he was with me. He was asking if it was customizable now, and is agreeing this is great news. I was bummed about that, but I kind of was skeptical as well. I thought it would be surprising if they totally got rid of that. I think it makes a ton of sense to have that be customizable. I always, frankly, sort of wondered in the back of my mind why it wasn't any ability whatsoever to customize what was in that control center or what got prioritized. So I guess this is good news after all, even though on the surface I think it looked like it could be a bummer.
Yep. We've got a couple of more. I mean, one of the major things they announced, and Richard kind of talked about one of these, is event types. They did kind of events based on events, I guess, like sunrise, sunset. You can also, how do you do that? These are like what I would consider table stakes for home automation products, but they did not exist inside of HomeKit specifically. So as Richard was saying, a lot of the device or the HomeKit app manufacturers and device manufacturers were doing all sorts of funky things inside of each individual app to try and mimic what Apple has gone out of their way, or not out of their way, but gone in, just put right into HomeKit. So you can get these day, month, year, hour, minute, plus and minus, sunrise, sunset. These are things that if you're into home automation, you probably use on every install, especially lighting control. It's great to have that in there. Yeah. And I don't know, you have something else you want to throw in on that one?
Well, I mean, the thing that I think is really critical there is that, these triggers, previously they had the ability to do stuff on sunrise, sunset. And what they've done is now they've added the ability to do it at specific times, and they've added the ability to have these plus or minus offsets from sunrise and sunset. And if you've done any serious home automation, you know that plus or minus from the sunrise and sunset time is really key. You don't want everything coming on at sunrise or sunset. That just doesn't make sense. So I think that's very smart. The other thing that I thought was probably the biggest news in this trigger news was that they've really rethought how they handle occupancy. And instead of managing occupancy from a device perspective, where like this phone is home or this watch is home, it's based on the user. So presumably the user account that is tied to whatever device or devices that you have on you, then their presence is what's going to be combined to define whether you're home or away. And they've really thought through this idea of every person and whether they're home or away, and then monitoring the first person to come home and have that as a trigger and the last person to leave. And that's really important if you aren't a single guy living in an apartment with all your geeky stuff.
Yep. This is brilliant. I mean, if this is done right, this is huge for them. Because Richard, you and I know, and I'm sure Jason, if you've ever played around with any of these geofencing apps that are just horrible, like they never work correctly. And this, if it works the way they are saying it works, I think this is a huge feature of HomeKit, and probably will be one of the most popular features for people who figure out how to use it. If it works right.
Right. Well, let's touch on one last big category here in terms of just HomeKit in particular, and that is the added category of speaker into HomeKit. And so they did not have this before, and now they do, as part of HomeKit, have the built-in ability to do multi-room audio. This is going to be tied in with an update to the AirPlay protocol. So AirPlay 2, I'm really hoping it works better than AirPlay 1, which we jokingly at my old company used to call AirPray. Not exactly known for its reliability. In my opinion, very shaky. But for an individual user, somebody who's just wanting an easy way to stream music around the house, it's great. For a professional deploying systems that need to work, close to 100% of the time, not so much. So I'm hoping, they can maybe tweak some of the things in this protocol to give it a little more reliability. But gosh, the fact that they've now got multi-room audio baked right into HomeKit is very big news, and I look forward to seeing what shakes out of this.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. I don't quite know what the tie-ins are going to be to HomeKit, and they really made no effort to explain that. Presumably the idea would be that you could trigger certain audio sounds or music to occur as an activity based on some event. And so I'm curious to see how this ties into the HomeKit ecosystem.
Yep. Will be interesting to
what
see.
I think is really, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it will be interesting to see. I don't have that many. I think AirPlay really relies on the network. I've been using it every single day to extend my monitor, which you would think is kind of scary, like and lazy, because the computer's right here and I could just plug the HDMI into the computer, but it's right there. There's an Apple TV. So it's hilarious, but it works really well, and it's been running, for weeks without issue. Latency I barely noticed. So I think it really depends heavily on the network and this is an old Apple TV. This is one of the first generations.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think the tie-ins will be, some of them will be obvious, the ability to incorporate audio into HomeKit scenes and this sort of thing. But just from a more general perspective, the ability to have control of your house audio baked right into Control Center, for instance. We were just talking about that. Could be pretty cool. And so, we'll see how that shakes out. I think this is not even a shot across the bow, but right into the stern of Sonos, and this transitions us perfectly into the final thing we want to talk about here, which is, of course, the big unveiling of HomePod, which, for lack of a better term, is
lack of a better name.
That too. Yeah, great point. For lack of a better term, is Apple's Echo competitor. We've been joking about that for weeks. We need a better name for this category, but it is Apple's entrance into that Echo market, and gosh, tons to talk about here. I think let's get the bad stuff out of the way. The name and the appearance.
Hold on. There's a priority thing we have to do here.
Yes. Thank you. I almost forgot.
Hub bell has been rung. This is a hub.
It is very much a hub. That is true. It's got the A8 chip built into it, so it's the same chip that you find in an iPhone. It is capable of acting as your HomeKit hub, so much in the way that an Apple TV would allow you to remotely control your home from anywhere in the country or whatever. This will act as that device. Not surprising there. I think we all expected that. This device was very heavily rumored coming into the developer conference, so it wasn't wasn't a big surprise to see it, but I think very much to me comes across as a Me Too product, right? I mean, I just don't know what Apple could have done differently here. So I don't know that I can't cite specific things, but it feels like they came late to the party. We've been talking about this for like 2 years. And other than really a premium audio experience, I don't know that there was much that they touted that's not already being done.
But that is the difference, right? I mean, they're approaching this from a premium audio experience. And they even introduced this by showing a slide with Sonos and the Amazon Echo and talking about how Sonos is great for multi-room home audio, but it isn't a smart speaker, and how the Echo is a great smart device, but it has terrible speaker quality. And they're trying to combine the two into one. So I think that is their differentiator, that they're really trying to come up with something that, really this is competing with Sonos. This is a major shot across Sonos's bow, because they are in a partnership already with Sonos in terms of retail. And that was one of the reasons that I thought it made a whole lot of sense for them to take that partnership further and build Siri into future Sonos devices. But instead, they're going to compete with them directly. I mean, they're not expecting you to buy one of these things. They're expecting you to buy a bunch of them and put them around your house, which, as we're talking about HomeKit, makes you wonder if in the future we might not also finally see some meshing capabilities between the HomeKit hubs.
Yeah, I don't think this was a shot across the bow. I think this was a shot with a direct hit. I mean, they quite literally put the Sonos Play 3 up on a slide. They didn't even attempt to blur out the name like they do in the past, where it's like, oh, it's a generic speaker. No, that's Sonos. It says right there, it's Sonos. Yep. And they called it a dumb speaker.
Yeah.
They said it wasn't smart, to be fair.
Well, but okay.
Read between the lines. To make it the poster child, that's just crazy.
Right.
That's just crazy.
And we didn't really touch on this, but missing from the AirPlay 2 audio slide that was mentioned earlier was Sonos. Like, there were a ton of companies on there: B&O, Bose, Beats, of course, Polk, Denon, which has the Hios line, B&W. Like, these are the high-end speaker lines that will have AirPlay 2. And where is Sonos? Why couldn't they get this deal done?
Still no AirPlay.
Sonos never had AirPlay 1.
Right.
Nope.
Right. Well, and their dumb little hack that they say is the only way to do it, that costs you so much money, it's unbelievable.
That's how I do it. I buy an Airport Express, and for $100 more
and a 3-second delay.
Right. Exactly. So let's get into the speaker itself, because this is exactly what Ming-Chi Kuo from KGI Securities had predicted, and what then Bloomberg later reported, and you guys talked about last week. This is that speaker, and if it is in fact as good as they and KGI suggests, this could be a really good sound product.
Yeah, I read a couple of things online. I can't recall exactly where, but say that it does sound great. And with a 7-tweeter array, a 4-inch woofer. I mean, I can't imagine that it doesn't sound good. That, like you said, Richard, that is what Apple is banking on. That is the differentiator that they're hoping will make them stand above the crowd. At $350 is going to be the retail on this, available in December, by the way, we should add. So we're still a good 6 months away or so from having availability to this. But my guess is that the audio quality is going to be very good. My guess is that they're going to have a ton of success with this, just if nothing else, by virtue of the fact that it's an Apple product and that people will pay that premium price tag for it. Relatively premium, I should say. When it comes to the price, I actually don't think that $350 is a bad price point. I'm very much with you on that, Richard. I look at this much more as a Sonos competitor that happens to have the intelligence or the capabilities of a device like the Echo than I do, the other way around, right? So is a premium audio
if you
product.
look at the specs,
yep.
If you look at the specs, this is on par with the Play 5.
Yep.
Which is not a $349 speaker. It's what, $600?
Yeah.
So, and you get the Home Assistant built into it, the Siri built into it. Yeah, I think this is a home run for them.
Yeah.
I mean, in that price point.
I think the price point's good.
Yeah. I mean, my concern is that this is their entry point. And with Sonos, you can go and you can buy a Play 1 for $250 and you can add a dot. Sorry, you can buy it for $200 and add a dot to it to the tune of $50 or sometimes $40 if it's on sale. So the entry point for good sound and control is $100 less than what Apple is asking. And I'm concerned about that, particularly if Sonos follows through on the Echo integration that they previously announced. And I've heard that they are in beta now with some users.
I don't know. I think $100 though. I suspect the audio quality difference between a Play 1 and the HomePod is going to be night and day. So I see your point, Richard, and I think there is certainly a segment of the market that $100 will be a make it or break it type of deal. But I don't think that's necessarily who Apple's targeting. I mean, they've never been a company to concern themselves overly with the bottom end of the market. They're a premium product. So I personally was not surprised to see the price point. I was surprised at the way they presented it. It almost felt like, if you watched it, to me, it felt very out of character for Apple. Like they put up this slide that was like, typically a Wi-Fi speaker would cost you this, and then a assistant would cost you this, and that would total $700, and we're giving you ours for the low price of whatever. And it just felt like it felt out of character to me for Apple. Like it almost felt apologetic for their price point, which I thought was interesting. It just struck me. I have no issue with the price point. I'm actually it's on the low end of what I would have predicted coming into it.
Well, and we're dismissing here. Over in the chat, Byte is saying, I can access Siri from the phone, not worth the extra 100. Well, you can do that. And guess what? You can buy AirPlay 2 Wi-Fi speakers from all these other brands that may have a product that comes out lower. Frankly, I'm more surprised that there is only one offering from Apple at this point in time. Maybe they need to make the case of having this crazy 7 speaker with a 4-inch woofer device, premium device, before they come out with the actual Siri in a can device.
You sound a little empty there.
I mean, this is more like, yeah, it is. It's getting low. But I'm really surprised there's only one of these things. Like there definitely is space for a $250 device and something up from the from the $349 device. I would be surprised if a year or two from now we're not seeing those devices, or it's not filled out by another product manufacturer like that we mentioned before. Bose, Beats maybe will come out with a lower cost AirPlay 2 speaker that makes more sense for some people. So I really don't. I'm just more. I guess I'm more surprised that they don't have more than one at this point in time.
Yeah, I got you. Well, let's talk about streaming services, because that was another area where I felt like there was a little bit of omission, right? I mean, they talked about Apple Music being, of course, on there, quote, from the beginning, end quote. But they didn't.
There we go. We're done talking about streaming services.
That's it. They didn't talk about any other ones, and so I have to imagine that from the beginning wasn't a reference to the fact that more are coming. I would hope. I mean, I cannot imagine that they're going to be brazen enough to come to market with a product that only does Apple Music. But then maybe again, I'm selling them short. Who knows?
Well, there is no Siri API for audio. And until that time happens, and I think Apple is using it. They've made their own internal Siri API for this particular product to work with Apple Music. until they release an API for developers to integrate into their apps or their services, I don't think we're going to see any additional streaming services. I think that has to come first, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that you have to do as a developer to make that work, from voice to, they were showing off like play more songs like this, play this song, that kind of thing, which I thought was pretty cool. But it's again all Apple Music,
right,
and nothing else.
Right. Yeah, I think that I don't know if I would want to predict if they're going to support anything but Apple Music on this. But I will say,
it safe.
it is not un-Apple-like to take that approach and look at it also from the home control perspective. They talked about all the different types of things this can do, very similar to the types of things that you can do on an Amazon Echo or a Google Home. Missing from that discussion about home control was anything other than HomeKit.
Right. Very true. So, this is not terribly surprising to me. I mean, it's early in the product, but Apple, when it comes to home control, that one. So with streaming services, I would be very surprised if eventually we don't see native support for other streaming services. On the flip side of that coin, when it comes to home control, I would not be at all surprised if this is a completely walled garden approach. They want to get you into the HomeKit ecosystem, and that's it. I mean, I don't see them going any other direction with this. I don't know about you guys.
Nope. I think it's going to stay Siri, HomeKit, and I think I'll play it safe too and say it'll probably only be Apple Music for quite some time, until there's a really good case to be made to put in other services. I think, they're going to sell what works, and they're trying to build their Apple Music brand up, and I don't think they're going to cut themselves doing that. I don't think they're going to kick their legs out from the other part of the company, the services part of the company, just to integrate with Spotify or something like that.
So you're talking about other services, and the thing that's really interesting there is this is a developers conference, and they announced this new product that is a consumer product, and everything they talked about it was about the consumer benefits. Not once did they mention if it would even have an SDK that would allow third parties to build additional capabilities for it.
No, just HomeKit. That's it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is it though? It's Apple. Like, to me, it's not shocking. I can see an argument for them doing it, but this is not, to me, not a huge surprise.
I guess there's also Siri Kit as well. Like, you have HomeKit and Siri Kit. Anything that you can do with Siri, you can do with this device, presumably. It will be interesting to see how they handle more than one person in the home. I think Google has done a good job of that. I wonder what Apple is, or how Apple is going to do that.
Yeah, I think they definitely need to think about that. And there are some things they could do there, I think, that would be helpful, but they don't have a good record of people sharing devices. Like, that's not something that they've really taken to at all on things like tablets or what have you. The other thing that I think they really need to think about is if these have some sort of in-home context, like presumably if these are assigned to HomeKit, then they're assigned to a room. And if they're in a room where there are other HomeKit devices, then I would expect this thing to understand what I mean when I say turn on the lights. Turn on the lights at 1:00 in the morning in the family room does not mean turn on every light in the house.
Are you angry at your Echo?
Turn on the lights where I am right now. And I hope that they're thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you got to imagine they are. I mean, this is early. The fact that it's not even shipping until December. Again, Byte in the chat room here saying, this is early. They're going to refine it over the summer. Who knows what we're going to see in the future? This product is going to be around for the long haul. I think we've proven as a smart home industry at large that this form factor, this type of product is the new normal. People are going to expect it and want it. So we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg here when it comes to just looking at Apple, and who knows where they're going to go with it. But I do think just inherent market philosophy of Apple will be a gating factor there in terms of how open they're going to be to development and integration by and with third parties.
HomePod.
I'm okay with that. We all thought iPad was ridiculous when that was rumored.
Well, it was the second poor name, like High Sierra, for the software. Like that's, I don't know.
Not the marketing department's best year.
Definitely not the best names. No.
I don't want to nitpick. All right. Well, look, we've kind of run up on our time here. Do you guys have anything else about the HomePod? I know we kind of jumped around there and talked about a number of different topics. We sort of glossed over a couple of them. What do you guys think? You think we did its due?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be a premium speaker. This is Sonos's market to lose.
Yep.
And it will be interesting to see what happens. I think Sonos has a much bigger head start. They have, surround sound systems that you can hook up and mix and match out of their product line. They have subwoofers. I mean, none of this stuff. It would be interesting to see an A8 chip put into a subwoofer. I mean, that would be weird, but there's nothing stopping Apple from doing this stuff. But they're going to have to expand the HomePod product line a little bit more to compete on the level that Sonos is actually on right now. And they've got a decade head start. I mean, that's not something to laugh about. That's a decent amount of product that's out in the marketplace. I love my Sonos system. I can't wait for it to have the Amazon Echo integration. That would be great, because the Echo speaker is horrible. And, I don't know. This device is somewhat promising. I kind of want to hear one and use before I would go out and buy it. But at the $350 mark, I really don't think that they're going to have problems selling it. It's that premium market for Wi-Fi speakers. I think they'll be okay.
I agree. Well, we will wrap it up here. Really quickly want to send a quick thank you out to everybody who has supported our podcast by heading over to HomeTech.fm/support. That is where you can learn about our Patreon page, and that is a way that you can support our efforts here at the podcast for as little as $1 a month. We've had a whole bunch of people come on board and do that, and we really do appreciate it. I also always do like to mention that even at that $1 a month price point, we will send you an invite to our private Slack channel, The Hub, which has really blossomed into a fun community. I think this week was a great example of it. During WWDC, there were hundreds of messages going back and forth. It was tough to keep up, but really fun and spirited dialogue. So once again, if you're interested in that, HomeTech.fm/support. Richard, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your week to come back on. It's been too long, and we'll look forward to getting you on again very soon.
Yeah, glad to be back with you guys. Always have a good time talking with you. And I heard you talking about Cedia, so hopefully we'll be able to connect up there again this year.
Yeah, are you going?
I am planning on it at this point. I have it penciled in, let's say that. But I usually try to make it. Last year, I just had too much stuff going on at home.
Yep. Well, I will be there, so keep us posted, and we'll look forward to connecting with you out there. So once again, Richard, thanks so much for joining us. Seth, had a good time recording with you here tonight, and we'll connect next week and do another one.
Absolutely, sounds great. Hey, Richard, before we go, where can people find what you do?
Yeah, so I host Home On. That's a show directed toward consumers and hobbyists, talking more about product than technology, about smart home product and from a DIY perspective. And if you want to hear my kind of, scattered thoughts across the internet, the best place for that is at Richard Gunther on Twitter.
Awesome. Seth, thank you for catching me there. Richard, you've been on the show so many times, I almost forgot to let you do that.
Oh, you guys are my best advertisers.
Excellent.
We appreciate it.
Well, I got one more quick announcement before we hit close on this. I will be at InfoComm next week on Thursday, so if anybody wants to meet up and chat, let me know. I'm at Seth P. Johnson on Twitter, so you can probably catch me there, or just send the email over at HomeTech.fm/feedback. I'll get that too.
All right. Very good, guys. Well, fun show. We'll let you go.